Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at Buckland Farm, which is a map by MS Modding. It's brand new today. Let's just read the PDA and then we'll look at some screenshots and get right into the map. We're going to be doing a deep dive looking at everything there is to know about this map so that you guys can have a good idea of whether or not you want to download it and play it. Welcome to Buckland Farm, based on a real-life location in Somerset. There are 3 farms, a cow, sheep, goats, pig, and horse pens, multiple sell points, a pub, a garden center, an industrial park, 75 different sized fields. There are multiple forests, a sawmill, and UK themed areas. It uses Disturbed Simulations modding for the use of UK Geo version 5, Oxygen David's grass texture, Oxygen David's custom lighting, and Oxygen David's new rye crops. Those are in the Core Farms map. Premium expansion DLC crops work, carrots, parsnips, and red beets, and it is cross-platform. Animal grazing has been added, that's a mod. Cow, sheep, and goats, and that's PC only. Cow capacity is up to 500. The Go Vile DLC pack is updated. There are extra animals added, which is cross-platform, permission from Bronkama Toys. And there is goat's milk, so I assume some of the extra animals added would be goats and potentially ducks as well. Not sure for certain though. Antler 22 modding's alfalfa has been added. There is a manure heap added for cows. There is 4D modding's Erie Agri modding's custom slurry textures. Bullet Bill's crop textures for wheat, canola, barley, oats. Definitely going to be taking a look at those. I do like custom textures. Benji FS maize crops, some minor adjustments to the map to help with better performance, new models designed, and only custom animal husbandries work from ModHub. Okay, so if you download mods of animal pens from ModHub, they have to be customized by the modder to be able to work with these new animals to kind of work in conjunction. So you can't just download any old animal pen and expect it to work. Right, let's look at some screenshots. Looks like we've got some grass fields, which is going to be quite a bit of what there is in this area. A lot of grass work in the UK. Little rustic farmyard, which looks pretty good. And the map, yeah, it looks like a lot of irregularly shaped fields, but fairly large, and pretty big one down there. The roads aren't actually too narrow despite it being UK themed. I'm not sure why my screenshots do this, it's quite frustrating. Kind of have to bounce back and forth. Just a picture of some silos, and it's probably a cow or a pig barn there. It looks like a Kloss, Case, New Holland. Okay, so it's got a lot of different banners up there, but it looks like Kloss machines in the store. There's some sheep. Let's get into the map and see what we start with. Here we are on the farmyard. We've got a pickup, a New Holland telehandler, Fendt Favorite 511C, a Massey Ferguson 7S, Kloss Tryon, and back to the pickup. Let's see what other stuff we've got. A Kloss Karat trailer, 10.8 meter header. We've got a Kocherling cultivator that is 5.7 meters and does require 320 horsepower, which is a lot more than the 7S has. So you're going to want to get a bigger tractor pretty quick. And yeah, the Cedar uses more horsepower than our biggest tractor as well. Got the Dalbo roller, some Pottinger mowers, which is nice. Massey Ferguson ProTech baler, telehandler tools, got a bucket and a bale fork. Might have to get a pallet fork if you want to do that sort of thing. Header trailer and a couple of weights. In terms of land, we are up here in this area. I wonder if you can buy this. Oh, wow. So I thought that was a big field, but you can buy that. You do own the outside of the map and the town in case you want to put down some sell points or something for increased variety of areas to sell. Our farmyard is worth $960,000 and some of the area around it is worth less. So if you did want to sell that for whatever reason and start maybe down here and buy a couple of fields or something, you do have that potential to do that. Got a cow barn, which I would assume is going to take up a lot of this grass field. Yep, so I assume this is the pasture land. They talked about cow grazing being a mod installed. I assume that's what that is. just simply means the cattle. Yep, it's fenced in, and this is the area for the cattle barn. So you're not necessarily going to want to mow this as grass, although you definitely can. Same thing with Calmsden Farm and the sheep. But, you know, you got 4 other grass fields to use that aren't part of that, so you might as well do that. We got to start with a greenhouse, liquid fertilizer tank, a storage, vehicle storage with a workshop. We do have a grain silo and a chicken pasture, which, you know, I'm not sure quite where all that stuff is. Oh, looks like they just kind of walk around here. I'll buy a couple so we can see. Oh, sweet. We can get ducklings here and ducks. That's very cool. And they just kind of wander around this whole general vicinity, so you're going to want to be careful to not run them over. Unless you don't care, then I guess have your way. Do start with a wheat field that I assume is ready to harvest. Yep, and the grass is also ready to harvest, so you can go ahead and get right into that if you want to. And you are set up. As I said, you're kind of looking pretty small on the tractor front. Your biggest one is 175 horse. You might want to come in here, rent yourself a 7R would be plenty big. Let's see, how much did that cultivator need? Just to make sure we get enough. 320, so you might want to go with the 7R 290. And there you go. Going to be 261 grand, or you can lease it for $13,000. Just a suggestion on my part, because this Massey Ferguson is going to be severely underpowered, no matter the size of the massive weight. It's got 3,300 kilos. That's huge. This thing isn't even going to be big enough for the seeder here, so you're going to want to go bigger. Let's see which kinds of extra crops have been added. Looks like we've got alfalfa and rye. Rye is planted in September and October, as well as a little season in March, and you can harvest from June to August, depending on when you plant. Alfalfa, you can plant anytime from March to November, and harvest May to November. So, alfalfa is going to be similar to grass, and rye is going to be similar to wheat and barley and oats. They're all pretty similar. Right, so there are custom textures, so I'm going to go ahead and hop in the harvester so we can go have a look at those. I want to see what they look like just standing in the field ready to harvest, and then I also want to see what they look like as they kind of get harvested, because sometimes they have special textures, what with the ground and the stubble and whatnot. Now before we get too far ahead of ourselves though, we really need to drive around the map to kind of get a feel for it. So I'm going to go ahead and take our pickup out off of our land and just have a look. We've got a little cattle grate there. It's got ridges. The cattle don't like to walk on that, or they can't with their hooves, but cars and people can walk and drive right over them. Gotta start go up. I guess we're going down. Never mind, I turned the wrong way. I'm going to go down this way through the map. Got a nice narrow lane. Of course, we'd be driving on the left side. This is set in the UK. This is, well, that's our land up there. This is new, not ours. And on the left here, we got a big grass field here. If you're wanting to get into cows, it's perfect for you. As with Calmsden Farm, there is a lot of trees kind of blocking your view, so you might want to be driving in cab. Just a suggestion. Here's the custom plowed texture. Let's have a look at that. I'm going to get distracted, so you guys just got to bear with me here. That's not terrible. I'm not sure if I like it more than the in-game texture, but maybe it looks better when you're plowing. Kind of the grass rolling over, or the dirt rolling over it. I do want to go up into town. It looks like we've got a few vehicles up there in the top left that are ready to drive. Okay, there's our custom maize texture there. A little bit deeper green and a lighter yellow for the stalks as well. I'm not sure if that's more realistic to the area, but I think it looks pretty good. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. That is one of the custom wheat textures there, which, yeah, we'll get to that with our harvester. Zoom along pretty well. The roads are pretty good. I mean, they look a little too uniform for my liking. I'd like to see more potholes and cracks and whatnot if it was going to be like a top 5 map or whatever. Pretty well set up though. Give me Calmsden Farms / Court Farms feels. Here's a crossroads, and I'm going to go left. That is the biggest... No, it's not. Sorry. Can this be bought and used? What are we talking about up here? Got a sawmill. Is it field? We're going to have to go up there, because I'm curious about that. I'm sure you guys are too. If we drive along here, we got a couple of smaller fields kind of in this area. And some sort of logging area here on the left. Yep, that's pretty cool. That is really good looking, actually. Wow. I don't know if those are supposed to be solar panels or just glass roof or just a different color. I'm not sure. Looks pretty good though. Yeah, this area feels nice and alive. Not necessarily like a town, but a little farmer's market and shop up in there, convenience store type thing. And I do want to check what we can get here. Buckland Bulks. What can one buy at Buckland Bulks? Can we get like seed and stuff like that? Lime. Can't get it here. What about seeds? Where are those? I'm not sure what they sell here. Where are seeds? Am I blind? There they are. Yeah, I don't see Buckland Bulks anywhere. I'm getting distracted. You do something here, and I'm not quite sure what it is. There's the garden center there. Oh, here's a sheep pasture. So, similar to the cow barn that we've got on our field. It's not really a field of grass. It's a sheep pasture that's got a field of grass with it, and you can mow the grass if you would like to. It looks like these rings here are either farms you can start off with. There's one there, obviously the one we started off with. There's one down here with an animal dealer. So I'm not sure if those are just... Oh, ha, there's a key down here. My bad. So yeah, green is animal dealer, light green is BGA, yellow is the horse farm, which is right there. Blue is pig farm up there, and the red is the cow farm where we started. So if you wanted to start in farm manager mode instead of whatever easy mode is called, beginner, and you didn't want to start with all this, the equipment, the land, whatever, you could pick any one of these. Maybe you want to do some silage or biogas work. You can buy that, buy some grass fields and some equipment and work on it. Maybe you want to do pigs, buy that up there. Horses, you can head on down there. Maybe you want to role play as the animal dealer. Knock yourself out. There's just a few, not necessarily starting farms, but areas of interest. Right. I'm going to go drive up here and see if we can even do anything with this, because, well, I'm going to just teleport because I don't have time to drive all the way up there. Here's a sawmill. It looks custom too. That's amazing. Whoever made this map, MS Modding, definitely put a lot of time into it. This has given me Silver Run Forest vibes, especially these piles of wood chips. That was a pretty big thing that they had in Silver Run Forest. Okay, so this is trees, so you can buy it. It's not a field though. So this is all trees. I would assume it's all trees. I can come up here and kind of check out this end of the field. Maybe I should have fast running on. Let's just go ahead and turn that on. The only mod I come into these first looks with is the Easy Dev Controls mod, and whatever mods are included with the map. There were a few different types of sheds and barns and stuff included in this one. So yeah, it looks like it's all trees. So if you had $1.9 million and you really wanted to buy this sawmill over here and a bunch of forestry land, or you just want a giant field of grass, you can either just delete these trees with mods or do some forestry to clear them and then get into the grass. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. Here's one of our grass fields. I kind of zoom through it a little bit. Yeah, that's definitely giving me the Court Farms / Calmston vibe. Seems British enough. Never been there, but I've played a lot of farming simulator maps from the area. So yeah, I don't know if this is ready to harvest stage 1 or 2. As with grass, there are 2 different stages. If you want to harvest and ready to harvest 1, you won't get quite as good yield, and the grass will be a little shorter. If you wait another month or 2, it'll also grow a little taller and you'll get more yield. So depending on what time of the year it is, maybe it's about to be winter and you don't want the grass to die out, so you cut it when it's ready to harvest 1. Or you just need something to do for the month and it's ready to harvest 1, so you go for it. Right, now I think we can get into the textures, and this is wheat. From the ground, it looks pretty good. It's really solid. That's one of my issues with the in-game texture. They're kind of splotchy and just kind of in patches, which wouldn't be realistic if you plant them with a seeder. Obviously, seeders have rows, kind of like the texture on the ground here. There's a row there, a row there, row there, and they're like 6 or 7 inch spacing, so maybe you don't have rowed crops because they kind of grow in splotches, but this just looks more dense and more healthy, and I definitely prefer that to the in-game texture. As far as the color is concerned, it's a little too dull for my liking. I think, at least in the United States, wheat is a golden texture. It's very much a golden crop. You think of wheat, you think of golden heads of grain. You don't think of this dull, pale yellow kind of thing. As far as the crop, though, really nice stubble. I like that for sure. I think the straw might even be a different texture. Maybe I'm just reaching. How does it look going into the harvester? Into cab looks fine. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. That's a pretty good texture. I think I need to look into Bullet Bill's textures because I usually like them. I wonder if there's a separate mod to download for some of my other series, because I definitely like them. And just if I get out, we can have a look. It does appear that when you drive over the stubble with crop destruction on, it does mush it down a little bit, which is cool. I think it probably could have done more, and yeah, I don't know for sure if that's a custom texture or not. It did say wheat, barley, oats, canola, I believe, and then of course rye have different textures, so we're going to go ahead, have a look at all of those, harvest just a little patch like we did this time. But yeah, from up in the air, it's also dense. You can see it's kind of in rows. You can kind of see the rows laying out, which seems more realistic to me because you're planting it with rows, but maybe that's just me. And maybe I like it because it's different. You know, it's a change of pace from the base game. Who's to say? Right, before I talk too much, let's get into what barley looks like. So as far as barley goes, it's pretty similar, but it does have that golden look to it with the nice heads of kernels at the top. Let's go ahead and have a look at what it looks like harvested. Again, it is much more dense, and you can see the rows when you're looking at it, just like with the wheat, which is good. I definitely prefer that to the base game textures. Again, let's just see what it looks like when we harvest. Okay, it looks pretty similar. The stubble is a lot better than the base game stubble, and it does crunch a little bit when you drive over it, which is very good. Alright, I think oats has a custom texture, so let's check that out next, and then maybe canola, and then I want to look at rye and alfalfa and stuff as well, so let's get into that. Oats are looking much different than the base game. Kind of got some smaller kernels at the top, whereas the base game is more... These look more like grass, I guess is how I would describe it. Kind of like more stalks, more tightly spaced stalks with the heads of seeds and kernels at the top. Not sure if I'm describing that quite perfectly, but yeah, really nice rows. Looks great in the rows. Let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Get harvesting. Going into the header, it looks just about right. These are definitely a duller, more pale texture as well, just like the wheat. The stubble is the same as wheat and barley, it looks like. Still crunches down. Yeah, these are some pretty good looking textures. And this is taller than base game oats as well, I believe. Just makes the fields look much healthier when there's just like a pretty solid wall of crops when you harvest through it. Whereas with the base game, it's kind of like inconsistent and there's holes and patches. It just doesn't look like a healthy crop. Moving on to canola. Canola as well is definitely taller than the base game. It's coming like almost up to the top of my screen when I look straight forward. It is a duller texture. The in-game or base game texture is pretty orange, whereas this is kind of a faded, burnt orange brown look, which I gotta say is looking pretty good. It's not quite as dense as the other ones, and I gotta be honest, I'm on one of the higher ooh, why is that not harvesting? Oh, I've still got oats in here. Let's clear this out. Just empty, set. I didn't press set. I'm on one of the highest levels of video quality graphics that you can have, and my screen definitely fuzzes up when you're really far away from the canola, just because it's such a high quality texture. A bunch of those little twigs stick off in every direction, and there's tons of them. So I like the stubble. It doesn't crunch down though when you drive over it noticeably, which is kind of a bummer. Let me just make sure I do have crop destruction on. Yep. I like this one. It's pretty close to the base game texture. It's a little bit taller and a little different texture, and also a little bit different color. Let's move on. I'll check through. I'm not sure which crop is going to have a different texture next. I believe it only said 4, and we've already seen corn. It may be rye next, but maybe some of the other crops have a different texture, so I'll get into it and have a look. Kind of hard to see, but soybeans do have a different texture, and it is a road texture. The in-game one, or base game, or whatever you want to call it, this vanilla texture isn't in rows. It's kind of sparsely decorated, kind of like the wheat textures are. These are in rows, which is what you would see if you used a planter to plant them instead of a seeder. And you would actually, most of the time, harvest at a bit of a degree change from where you planted them, just because it's easier on the knives for the header. I'm not sure exactly what the degrees would be, if it's like 5 or 15 degrees differently than you planted, but I do know it is slightly different. As far as this texture is, yeah, it's just, I like the rows. I've seen this texture on a few different maps, but I like the rows, but the actual beans itself, like, they look really bad. I've never seen beans that look like this. There's usually like leaves all over the ground and like already cracked pods on the ground, and they just don't look very good, especially when you're in the tractor, like in the combine, like from above or a distance. Like it's really hard to see them because they're the same color as the ground. So I don't know. Let's move on. I can't decide if this sorghum looks different or not. It certainly looks like a very similar texture, if not identical. Let me just empty out the combine because I seem to forget to do that too much. It definitely looks very similar, maybe even identical textures. It's just changed the color a little bit, and that may be actually the map. But I would say that that's definitely a different look. The sorghum in the base game, or vanilla, without any mods, is really orange, similar to the canola. And this is kind of like a more pale and dull color. And so I'm guessing that's probably not the actual crop textures being changed. It's just the coloration of the map. It did say it uses Oxygen David's custom lighting. So I would guess that's what's at work here. Right, let's move into some rye and have a look at that. Rye is looking pretty good. A little bit more green than I would think. It's got like a yellowy green look to it, but you can see the heads of the kernels. Similar to wheat and barley, but not identical, which is kind of like what rye is. It's similar to wheat, not identical. This is barley here on this field, and you can see the heads of kernels are similar but not the same, because they're part of the same family of crop. Okay, so not really. Let me see if we can do straw swap. Okay, we can. Not really much in terms of stubble, whereas the wheat and barley and oats and all that had really tall stubble. This doesn't necessarily have that. Pretty good texture nonetheless. It's different. Pretty dark though. Definitely a pretty dark texture, which is either a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you want to see. Let's have a look at alfalfa, and then we'll check what the grass looks like, field grass, because we see this grass here kind of on the sides, but I want to see what it looks like if you were to plant it, so let's do that. Here is alfalfa. You can see it's a pretty big bushy crop with some purple heads at the top, and when it's cut, it lays down a bit of a lighter green crop type, or crop fill type, and then got some stubble there. I think these can probably toggle work mode. I think they can swath, yeah, so they can throw it all in the middle there. And just like with grass, there are two different harvest stages, so you can harvest at ready to harvest 1 if the weather's going to turn and you want to get the crops off the field. I'll show you what that looks like here. Let me just pop it there. Much smaller, but you can harvest, and yeah, I mean, it'll cut for you. Probably just not as much yield here, but again, if it's like October or November or something and winter's about to start and kill all the grass and you want to get the grass off the field, if you're role playing a bit like that, then yeah, that's something you can do. Let's just quick change it into grass, and we'll show ready to harvest 1 and then 2. So pretty thick carpet. A lot different than the base game texture, especially after it's cut. It's a much lighter green. And let's check ready to harvest 2. Probably a little taller. Yep, a little taller, a little darker color, and then when you cut it, it is that same light green on the bottom. So that's all the crop textures. Next we'll be having a look at the store and how many slurry tankers you can fit in there, because for whatever reason, that's the way I choose to measure that sort of thing. So here is the store. It's got a few machines in the front. I'm not sure if we can get into them. I'm going to go ahead and try. Looks like not that one. Can't get in the JCB. These machines do show up on the map, which is interesting to me. Doesn't look like we can get in them, though. It says it's rented by me, but I can't get in them. So I don't know if you were on multiplayer if this would be different, but yeah, none of them are letting me get in them. That's obviously not one. I don't know if we'd be able to hook this up to a harvester, or sorry, a tractor and use it. Or if it's just a decoration that for some reason when you look at it, you see in the bottom right, it says rented by you, which means I rent it, but I don't rent anything and I can't use it. So obviously it's not rented by me. Guessing that's just what's happened when he set up the map. Let's see how many of these things we can fit in here. I'm using the Vinhuis, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Premium Integral 20,000. So it's not too bad. It looks like we got 3, 6, 9, just 10 of them. Not terrible. If you were using some like giant air seeders or really big cultivators, big tractors and harvesters and whatever, and you were trying to buy them all at once, you may not be able to get very far. But again, this map is not meant for really big air seeders and really big wide harvesters and giant tractors. It's really tight roads, pretty narrow, smaller fields. So you're not really going to be looking at that. For this size of map and kind of just the vibe and the theme, this fits pretty well. Definitely plenty of room. When are you ever going to need 10 slurry tankers? I don't know, but for whatever reason, I like to rent them every time I do a first look. So I have a problem. Here is where the store is on the map. It is up here, top left, kind of in a city area, which I am going to drive around in. So I'm just going to go ahead and reset my truck, wherever that is, up to the shop so we can go ahead and Oh, right. I've got all those slurry tankers. So let me go ahead and return those first. Don't have to do all of them. I just need enough room to get my truck up to the store. And now we can drive around the town and kind of see what it looks like. And that'll be where we will wrap things up. So right out of the store, we've got 3 areas to go. Left looks like the biogas plant, or biomass, or whatever you call it. Looks like a pretty British type of town. Maybe not the exact same as like Calmston Farm or Court Farms, which are Oxygen David maps. Got a nice little church here with a steeple. That's pretty cool. Parking on the side of the road. More like brick style buildings and smaller townhouse. This is kind of like what you would expect to find again in Britain, I would assume. Never been there. It feels European though, for sure. Got some apartments here. That's pretty cool. I'm not getting, I'm not super impressed with the town. It's just kind of a generic town style, but it feels homey. We got some properties for sale and nice brick houses. The roads are a lot wider here, which I'm not sure is realistic, and we got some new construction here. That's pretty cool. That's something I don't think I've seen in very many Farming Simulator maps, so props to MS Modding for that. Interesting idea, and I think they've pulled it off really well. There's a lot of like debris and machines around there, so yeah, that's definitely a win in terms of the map. Whoops, we got a little campsite here / trailer park. I'm not sure what you'd call it in Europe, but in the United States, that's a trailer park. And then we got another kind of estate up here. A nicer house, or a couple of houses, I'm not sure. Those are like apartment type things. And then we got some picnics. Picnic benches, rather. And here we go. These are definitely European cottages. Like, I'm not sure exactly which country or which area of Europe these would be in, but when I think old, like 17 and 1800s Europe, I'm not sure how old these would be, but when I think of like 1800s Europe, this is exactly what I think of. Small, like grass or like reed roof houses with, yeah, white walls, windows, nice and homey. Again, these could be like built in 1950, I don't know, but that's what I think of when I think of like old Europe. And obviously in various different parts of Europe the housing is going to be way different, but that's for whatever reason in my American mind, whenever I think of old like 17, 18, 19th century Europe, that's what I'm picturing. So that's pretty cool. We got a little newer garage here. Yeah, as far as the map goes, I wouldn't put it up there as top 5 at all. It's a pretty interesting map. The fields are cool. I like the textures. As I said, I'd like to look and see if there is a mod on ModHub to download these textures, because I definitely love the custom textures. The fields and the field atmosphere isn't bad, but then like on the road, whoops, the bushes, they just kind of look too uniform, like they were placed with a mouse, just press as they go by, which, is probably how they were made. It's too rigid and uniform. I would like it to be more organic. If I were to like elevate this to a really high on the list of maps. The farmyards feel pretty lived in, but not like super realistic. I mean, there's some piles of rubble and stuff. There's some variance in texture. It's just not nailing the feel. It's not nailing the atmosphere perfectly. And maybe I'm being a little too harsh on it. It's a great map. It's just not quite to the super high level of some of the ones I've looked at. So definitely recommend you guys download it if you like British or European style maps. If you like custom crop textures, I would recommend it. I mean, there's definitely a different lighting of some sort going on with the map. So yeah. Anyways, that's all from me for now. I'll see you next time. Peace.